1. That's one of the many things we say would be that you don't have to be religious. That doesn't mean you get to lie about history, science, or religious people. As we say lots of those things. We also say belief in the supernatural, the transcendent, is normal, healthy, rational, and evidence-based. So please, if you get a chance, support our work on redpillreligion.com, where we do take your PayPal, Bitcoin, Maker support, and Patreon donations. We have articles and videos posted every single day, our original content, and videos and articles by others that we really like, including the Red Pill Religion team members, which we have quite a few. Please do give us your support financially and otherwise. Please find us on Patreon at Red Pill Religion. Please find us on Gab AI at Red Pill Religion. Find us on Maker Support at Red Pill Religion. Find our Facebook group on Red Pill Religion. And if you're a nerd and you use Discord, please, down in the low bar and linked off our site, please find the link to our free Discord chat room. We got a lot of people hanging out there. You like to discuss history, science, philosophy, and nerdy stuff. Come on in. As long as anybody's welcome, atheist, agnostic, just about any religion, as long as you're not a jerk. So, in any case, joining us tonight is the Telltale Atheist. Say hello to everybody, Telltale.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I've got Telltale linked on the in the low bar. Be sure to subscribe to his channel. He's a very interesting atheist. He does analyses of other religions. You talk mostly about Jehovah's Witness and some others, right?
Yeah, I focus on Jehovah's Witnesses. I also do a lot of Mormon stuff, but lately I've been trying to do a bit on every cult I can come up with. I've done something on Heaven's Gate and on Westboro Baptist Church, general extremist people. So, yeah.
I find that interesting. Now, Seventh-day Adventism, Mormonism, Jehovah's Witness, and there's a very slim handful of others that I would agree with you that they do share very similar roots and very similar history and a lot of similarities with each other. You are aware, I assume, that most Christians who are, and by that I mean Protestants, Catholics, Orthodox, all of us, do still mostly recognize each other as Christian, and we mostly don't recognize those groups I just named as Christian.
Actually, I was just working on a video right before I came on here. It's about the Church of Nazarene, and it's in that I basically talk about how some Christians don't feel like other denominations are Christian. Like, you'll hear from Catholics sometimes they say Jehovah's Witnesses aren't true Christians or Mormons aren't true Christians, things like that. And there's a lot of nuance in there.
I don't think there is that much nuance, to be honest. This is a complaint I often have with the atheist community. When like 90% of the Christian denominations are all unified on a question, you know, then you've got a problem there. So, I mean, you can look at, I mean, the Lutherans and the Catholics and the Presbyterians would all look at these groups and say, no, you're not Christian. They would recognize each other as Christian.
Right. So here's my position on it. I figure if you... So I'll tell you my position. You can tell me yours. If you claim, or if you feel like Jesus walked the earth, you follow his teachings, and he died for your sins, you're a Christian. Is that a fair assessment? Do you feel that way?
No, actually I do not. I don't think that's a fair assessment at all.
Okay, how do you feel about it?
I think, and it is the official Catholic position, but it's one that makes perfect sense. Made perfect sense to me when I joined Catholicism. What was it, 10 years ago? You have to be validly Trinitarian baptized, and you have to be a Trinitarian. And if you don't have at least those two as your starting place, you're not a Christian.
Very interesting. Okay, so you're Catholic then. Forgive me, I haven't actually... Well, I know you're in the community, and I know some people who talk to you, but I haven't done a whole lot of research on your background or anything, so fill me in a little bit as we go if you can.
Oh, sure. I was born in a fundamentally non-religious household. There was no overt religiosity until I was somewhere around 8, I think.
Okay.
7, 8, something like that. Then all of a sudden, I mean, it gets blurry, right? But it was definitely
Sure.
after I had moved to Chicago. I was more than 7. It would have been 8 or 9. I'm thinking 9. But all of a sudden, my stepdad decided we needed to be religious, and we were going to be Presbyterian. So that was interesting. And my bio dad sort of retaliated, and we were going to be. He's a big fan of the King James Bible and watching. I don't even know if these guys exist anymore, but what we used to call televangelists.
Yeah.
And going to AA meetings and talking about 12-step stuff, and that. By the time I was, I got pushed through Presbyterian confirmation classes, which I think is around age 12. I think. And I didn't even really take the vow that they had me say. I just kind of made a blah 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 noise because I didn't want to do it. I didn't believe it.
Your heart wasn't in it, I guess.
Not at all. And I didn't believe. I didn't see why. You know, I would read that Bible. I didn't see why people liked it. To be honest with you.
Right.
And I got into and curious about New Age spirituality and stuff like that for a number of years, but couldn't find much on any of it. Eventually turned into a full-blown skeptic, and pretty much I turned pretty seriously atheist for a long time. Depending on how you measure seriously atheist, but I mean definitely in the Penn Jillette mold of cheap shill skepticism. And you know, I thought it made me smart and stuff like that. And that was at least 10, 15, 20 years I was an atheist. And
That's very interesting. So let me ask you this then. Like, what pushed you over to, you said Catholic. What pushed you into Catholicism? What got you there?
Well, one of the differences for me is even though I was an atheist, you know, I calculated, of course, I always had the opinion that it would be arrogant of me to assume I was just right about everything and they were just wrong about everything, the religious people.
Sure.
And it clicked to me that, you know, well, it's normal for people to be religious. And that is true, because, I mean, within my family, as you can see, the Christianity wasn't all that, at least not on my mom and stepdad's side, wasn't all that serious. And New Age spirituality was everywhere, right? I had relatives and friends who were in this kind of cockamamie. Well, cockamamie, I don't know. I don't want to be insulting. I mean, but into the, what you'd call the fringe, you know, New Age, Edgar Casey and reincarnation and crystal healings and pyramids.
Sure.
All that, you know, the stuff was just around, and I was like, this is stuff people are into. I don't, you know, I think they're wrong. Maybe there's something to some of it. That was kind of my attitude. So I always maintained the curiosity, and I always went out of my way to keep religious friends. And so as a result, I wound up with Jewish friends and Hindu friends and Muslim friends and people with all kinds of spirituality. So I guess I was always curious, you know, even when I was an atheist, I never had this, I should lose my curiosity, I should lose my open-mindedness, you know. So I would look at all the different religions.
Right, there's like an innate curiosity in us to some extent, right? I mean, we want to know, we want to understand.
Oh, and it gets to the point that is my biggest beef with the atheist community, although I suspect that is eventually going to change. It has to. But the atheist community, when I was an atheist, I went out of my way to make sure I kept religious friends, that I did not treat them like garbage.
Right.
And that
like no echo chamber and things, right?
And well, I wasn't even there to argue, you know. I'd be curious, and if I thought they had something, and religious people often had insights and wisdom that was useful.
Right.
And plus, they're good friends to have. Shit, I was homeless at one point, and some Mormons took me in.
Yeah.
And there was a Hindu family next door. And they were super nice to me. And I'm like, oh, so I'm just going to be a dick to religious people now? No.
Right, I'm on the same page. See, that's where we can agree. I definitely do not, like, I am fighting against extremism and cults, and I would like to bring in religious allies. I have, like, religious people on my Discord, and they're always welcome, of course, so I'm not trying to berate anyone, you know. Yeah,
and there were a lot of religious people involved in the anti-cult movement in the 70s and 80s that I remember. Yeah. You know, I even read a pretty good book on it, and, you know, and really, you know, contrary to the rumor, you know, you're going to find Methodists, Catholics, you know, Presbyterians, Orthodox Christians who are probably going to want to help you with that, because cults are a different thing. Yeah, the word cult is a little poorly defined, just as religion can be. But I mean, usually it has to do both with size and just how intensely controlling they are.
That is very true. I don't know like how much of my channel you've watched, but there's this thing by Stephen Hassan called the Bite Model, and it's basically an analysis of religions to tell if they're a cult or not. And it's basically how much control do they have over the people. It stands for behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotion control.
There was a real good book I can recommend, and this was published, I think, late 90s or very early 2000s, called Snapping by Flo Conway and Jim Siegelman, a couple of psychologists looking at it. It's a real good book. If you're interested in the phenomenon, you're going to want to buy it and find it. If you
I may check that out.
It's even on Kindle. It's a pretty good description, and it goes into, you know, New Age therapies and political extremists and down Waco, all that stuff. It's a really good book, and interest in the subject has waned in the last 10 years, and I actually think that's due to the atheist movement, which I'm extremely critical of, as you've probably heard.
Yes, I picked up on that.
Well, as a former member, you start, it's really, but I don't know. I want to get to your other question, but I see so much cultish behavior in the atheist movement. I hope you're going to turn your guns on that subject.
That's interesting. So yeah, we can talk about that if you want to. Do you want to move on to something else for the moment and address it?
Yeah, well, let's go back to your question. How did I get out? How did I?
We can do
that. Actually, I had already become Catholic when I was dealing with the Mormons and the Hindus, who were never anything but nice to me because I was Catholic. I mean, you know, a try by the Mormons. Would you like to come to study with us? You know, you're welcome. But I'm like, no. And they never gave me a hard time. He said, no, he's Catholic. Okay. The end.
They didn't push you into it.
No, not at all. They were so nice. And so, you know, that's why it hurts me when I see this negativity. But anyway, I got out of atheism actually because it was around the time of a little before free thought blogs started, when people like P.Z. Myers were over at Science Blogs, I think. And I was seriously abused by him and quite a number in the community. I had already been, and quite a few other people in his circle. And lied about, and they even managed to, I mean, nobody will take accountability for which members of the skeptic community put up something called the Encyclopedia of American Loons. If you go look at they put an entry on there, there's no way to respond to it, there's no way to give it feedback, there's no way to object, it's full of nothing but lies, I mean, half-truths and distortions. And it was that sort of thing, there was a bunch of it, and the thing that, even the specific arguments, it was actually an argument over creationism, which I'm not a creationist in the sense that most people call it. Like most Christians, I'm not a young Earth creationist necessarily.
Old Earth creationist, or
even that? I hate the word. Okay, I actually think the atheist creationist debates help turn people into atheists. They certainly did me. Because I find the read of the Bible and the read of Genesis that both groups give to be so primitive, I want to kill myself.
Sure.
And I don't accept the, is it metaphorical or literal? Well, there's more choices than that. It's not either or choice. It's spiritual, and it's got, I mean, it's, the book of Genesis is densely layered, and just in the first chapter has all kinds of neat stuff in it people don't notice. But
that's very interesting. We're going to have to address that too.
Let's come in
really interested in all of this.
Are you? Okay. Well, I mean, the bottom line is that I was severely attacked for wrong thing. My biggest one, they accused me of saying that I thought teaching creationism in the schools was a good idea, which was a total lie, and it's still a lie. All I said was, if parents feel that strongly about the creationist debates, let the kids debate it in school. You know, once a year.
There is nuance there, is what you're saying.
That's what I was saying, but I was accused. And I said all the anti-creationist hostility is actually going to make more creationists because you're so mean to them and you're so upset. It's like a tar baby, right? You're inviting a fight.
Yeah.
Because I can assure you, in the 70s when I was growing up, even the Presbyterians and my King James dad were like, when we first heard about creationism, he was like, do they have to read that so literally?
Right.
This is my King James fundy dad.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I never took the evolution debate seriously at all. I still don't.
Very interesting. So how do you feel about evolution then? Do you think that that is how it, do you think that how science describes it is how it happened, or do you have questions about it?
Well, here's one of the interesting things, and I find it very frustrating because when I even reveal that I'm a Christian, people immediately want to go to the creationist debate, which I detest it. All right, I really do.
I do too, honestly.
I just make it stop, please.
Yeah, same page.
But I can tell you that the Catholic answer on evolution was the correct answer. They took about 50 years to think about it. The Church was never against it. You had some bishops and priests on either side, but the truth is most Catholics, from the history I've read, is like nobody found it that big of a deal.
Right.
The Church had, after all, established most of the universities that most of these scientists have been trained at, and we're still running a lot of them. And a lot of these scientists are Church trained. I don't remember where Darwin got his, but it doesn't matter. I think it was in the 30s the Vatican just officially declared it's acceptable to believe in evolution. It's not a dogma of the Church, and it can't be treated like a dogma, but it's just not a problem if you believe in it. And I can tell you, during the Scopes Monkey trial, Catholic schools were already teaching evolution in their schools.
Right.
I mean,
it was kind of a moot point at that point.
It wasn't a big deal.
Right.
In any case, I mean, God is the ultimate intelligence running the laws of physics and probability. And so he can do things by whatever ways he wants to. He's running all of it. That's our understanding. God's the intelligence underlying everything. So the laws of physics, the intelligence running those. The laws of probability, the intelligence running those. That's actually why the classical Catholic Christian worldview, actually that's why science came up out of Catholicism, to be honest with you, because it did. There's this historical narrative which is not accurate at all, that science had to free itself from the primitive superstitions of the truth of the Church. That is simply not true. The Enlightenment myth has real problems. I can give you a couple of books. This one's hard to find, actually. It's called God's Philosophers, but more people should have it.
God's Philosophers. And so what's it about exactly? It's talking about the Enlightenment and things like that? Oh,
no, this is way before the Enlightenment. I'll get you two books. How the Catholic Church Built Western Civilization by Thomas Woods. Neither of these people is Catholic, although I think Tom Woods did convert. I can't remember, but he's a completely a respectable source. And God's Philosophers by James Hannam, not Catholic, just Christian, I think, not sure. Scholar in any case. And you know, this lays out how in the 1,000 years before the so-called Enlightenment, the medieval world had laid all the foundations of modern science, primarily through the Church, which among ancient Christian philosophy holds that Christ is what's called the Logos. And that's in the Gospel of John, actually. And the Logos was understood by the ancient Greeks before Christ to be those things that are non-material reality that we still all know are real. And so, for example...
Do you have an example?
Yeah, mathematics.
Okay, all right. So conceptual things that aren't physical, right?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Types of things?
Yes. Yeah, in fact, modernists are caught in what we would call a materialist worldview, and it gets hard. The language we use, and again, this isn't specifically Catholic, actually, a lot of people, in fact, a lot of this other religions could even use, but a good distinction that makes it easy philosophically to understand this is that you have the natural and you have the supernatural. Now, I hear often that there's no good definitions of these. I'll give you ones that anyone can use that are easy to understand. The natural is anything which is subject to what we would call the laws of physics. Okay?
Okay.
So that is the natural. So if we go like classically, we'd say anything subject to the four forces: gravity, light, strong and weak forces. If you go
Sure.
into quantum physics, then it's still conceptually it's the same. The physical part is what the quantum wave fluctuations are doing. The non-material is the part that is the logic and intelligence that makes it go that way.
Does that include math?
Well, yeah. What we would say, well, actually, logic ultimately, you can argue about it, but I think most who look at it would agree that mathematics is basically applied logic. Ultimately.
Okay.
That's kind of how I think of it. I don't know if how else would you think of it?
I don't, I'd have to give it some thought. I haven't really thought about it, so I don't want to make any assumptions or claims at this moment.
Fair enough. Math and logic are not material. They have no physical basis. You've never seen two in your life. You've seen two of things, but you cannot see two. And so this is ancient. This is Aristotle. This is Plato. This is a few hundred years, but it's not even Jewish or Christian.
Right.
It's just Pythagoras, actually, and Euclid, and all those guys all believed this. Like Euclid was considered a spiritual master because he was master of geometry. Because geometry is considered supernatural, part of the logos, because the logos would be the logic that makes the whole universe go. So the logos will include logic itself. Ultimately, logic itself is the logos. Plus, you're going to have math. You're going to have concepts. You're going to have geometry, right? In reality, you've never seen a triangle. You've only seen things shaped like triangles. So
okay, I'm with you. That makes sense.
Yeah. So these ultimate the laws of physics themselves would be considered part of the logos. The rules driving those so-called forces.
Okay, so you're saying that you would call those things, those non-tangible things, God. Is that a fair assessment, or
we'd call that the logos.
Okay. Okay.
Which is in Christian thinking is the logos is one of the aspects of the Holy Trinity.
Okay.
Essentially, God the Father. This is trimmed down, but this is basic Trinitarianism as understand theologically, not just by Catholics, but most Trinitarians will understand that God the Father is the source of all power. If you want to think of it as the thing that like pushes reality, makes it go, is the ultimate source that's pushing in everything. God is the power. Right. God the Father is the power. God the Son is the logos, the wisdom, the knowledge, the logic that drives it all. And the Holy Spirit is love, and that's the Trinity. It's a little unusual you put love in there, and that's the strange one for the Christians.
Right.
So
that's really interesting.
God is those three.
Right.
Which also gets us our reputation for being what you would call polytheists. The Muslims and the Jews will say that sometimes. We just think they have an incomplete understanding.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that before. A lot of people, like a lot of Christians, will say that Hindus and Muslims and all these others are pointing to the same truth, but they have an incomplete understanding of the whole thing. Right.
So, I mean, what we would say within that, theologically, you could say, again, this is primitivized language. Someone's going to come in here and nitpick me, but you could say that of those two aspects of the Trinity, God the Father is what's pushing it all into motion, and the Son, the divine logos, is the logic that's driving it all and binding it all together and keeping it working the way it's working. And that's and there's scriptural basis for all of this. You just have to have a deep reading and all that. But right. I mean, this is how the early Christians understood it. This is how Augustine understood it. This is how Justin Martyr and Polycarp. We're talking 2nd, 3rd century, 4th century people. They
right.
understood it this way. And so the God's the intelligence driving that all and making it all go. And so within that framework, this is why concepts, many would argue, and I certainly would, that concepts like there being laws of physics in the first place stem straight out of that. Because of things the Bible says about God's unchanging nature and the unfixed rule, the rules that govern everything are of God, and so I'm starting to ramble a little bit, I think, but
No, I'm with you. So let me ask you this then. Would it be fair to say that your position on the whole situation is, assuming that, you know, the Bible is correct and all of that other stuff and inspired of God, then logic is based on, or logic cannot exist without God. Logic is part of God, things like that. Is that
God literally is logic.
Okay.
Logic is one of the aspects of God. You got to think about this. The implicit assumption here, but I think this is demonstrable. If you think that logic is something you impose with your mind on the universe, that humans are capable of imposing on with their minds on the universe, like literally making all the logic work, and I mean all the logic, the shape of the keys, and the fact that, you know, the way the laws of physics are going, and making all of that. So, no, the God literally, okay, you either think we're doing that with our minds, or the logic precedes us, that the universe operates logically whether we're here or not.
Okay, interesting. So here's my position on that.
Okay.
I don't really know what happened or what's going on. I just happen to know that logic works, that it's here and we can use it to kind of reason our way through things, right? So my position is I'm not going to take a position on where it came from or if it's God or not. I'm just going to just say it's here and we'll work with it and figure things out from there. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. You're not inclined at this time to that philosophical question, but I think ultimately it's a very interesting question, because the universe does operate logically. And I mean, we may call it, it may seem random and chaotic, but all we have to do is look around us and know mostly the universe, the laws of physics are pretty predictable. And the idea that there are laws of physics, that there are governing logical rules governing the universe, is a Christian theological idea. It's also implicit in the other Abrahamic faith.
Right.
And other religions and other worldviews don't necessarily have that. Science developed because we think something intelligent is operating these laws of physics and probability.
Right.
And because we think God is not God is not the creation. God is the one that's, created all of this and is continually creating all of this, making it all go. You can't physically test for God, of course, but because of that, because he's running the physics. He's not physical. He's running the physics.
Right.
But theologically, the Christian worldview then arose. Well, the universe operates logically, and we're not in control of the universe. Something bigger than us is running things, and we can start looking at, well, the scriptures actually do say things will be orderly and logical and all that. That's the base on which science rests.
But there's a built-in assumption there, of course, that we're taking the Bible to be inspired by God. Right? I mean, we aren't 100% sure of that. We can let's leave the question aside. Let's pretend the Christian religion is false or, fatally flawed in some way. Okay? The belief, the very fact that people believed that the universe was governed by logical, intelligible laws that were fixed and unchanging, because that's one of the aspects of the gods scripturally, fixed and unchanging, then you would be able to predict things and you would be able to test things. And the idea that you could perform empirical experiments began to take shape in a real way, because we can make these assumptions. If it's not, there's no inherent reason why you should believe that the universe is governed by fixed, unchanging laws. Why should you? Why should I? Right.
That fact is not immediately apparent.
Right, that's true. We just, as far as I understand it, now this really isn't my forte. This isn't my area. I get into morality more. But as far as I understand it, you're right. There is no way. There's no reason to think that things are just going to operate
And keep
consistently, right? But that is our experience. So we have to make three basic assumptions. The first one being that we live in a shared reality with each other.
Right.
The second being that we can make predictions off of. So the second one being that.
And that things actually do follow an orderly logic. That you can
right, and that we can base predictions off of things, right? So, solipsists, for example, will just reject the first assumption outright. They don't believe that they live in a shared reality. I generally subscribe
the people
to
who
those
say, "I am
people.
God, God in all of us, we're all God."
Yeah.
That's actually an inherently solipsistic point of view.
Yeah, so I generally just accept those three basic assumptions. Like, we can test things, we live in a shared reality, we can base predictions off of things. So built into those three assumptions is the fact that logic exists and that things are consistent and testable and predictable.
One of the interesting things is, and this is just philosophical, I'm not trying to convince you of anything, or anybody of anything, this is philosophical. One of the interesting things is those three assumptions are all faith assumptions that are not testable.
That's true, you're right.
They're just not.
That is very true.
But interestingly, you can, test for whether or not logic works. So logic appears to be more important than all those first three. In fact, without logic, you wouldn't have been able to form those principles.
Right. It's a really interesting philosophical situation we find ourselves in here.
Well, I mean, from my perspective, it all snaps into coherent sense if I assume the existence of a God. It just does, because it actually does make the world seem more coherent, because God's the ultimate reality. God's the ultimate yardstick for everything else. So you kind of snap into greater coherence. But anyway, I was getting back to it. These are both two good books to get into, because there is a lot of bad history floating around the atheist community. Tim O'Neill's doing a pretty darn good job too. If you look at his History for Atheists site.
I don't know that I've ever heard of that. Is he an atheist?
He is an atheist, and he doesn't like me, and that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. His site is still really good. It's called, he's a historian, and he's an atheist, and it bothers him just how much bad history goes around. He's got a lot negative to say about Richard Carrier. He's got a lot negative to say. Oh, Richard Carrier's got issues, dude. He recently sent his CV my way because I had said he's not qualified. I'll have to change my public assertion on that, but he's still not that well qualified. It's a good site because there is just I'm sorry, I can tell you that even the myth of the Enlightenment is a myth. It was mostly Protestant propaganda that modern seculars have picked up. The church was running all sorts of interesting science even at the time, and is still doing so.
Right, so you want to tell me, let's define it. What is the Reformation to you? Let's go through
the Reformation to me is probably the greatest tragedy in Christian history. There's simply no question that Martin Luther was correct in many, many, many of his criticisms of the horrible corruption we saw in the Vatican at that time, and the de Medici popes. What the faithful Catholic will say, and I am one at this point, is okay. We're entirely aware that you get Judas popes. In fact, the Scriptures warned us that one of the original 12s turned into a traitor, and we've seen traitors in church office since. That's not a reason you split the church. That's a reason to reform it. And so Martin Luther, in my eyes and many other people's eyes, might be Saint Martin Luther today had he not done certain other things that they just weren't right. And he started, I mean, I did not grow up Catholic at all, but I mean, in my long search, I eventually concluded that there were 4 branches of Christianity that could credibly claim to be in continuous operation from the earliest days that we can trace, and Roman Catholicism was one of those 4. So that...
How do you feel about Eastern Orthodoxy?
I love the Eastern Orthodox so much, and we got a lot of Eastern Orthodox hanging out on our server. In fact, our project started 2.5 years ago, and I had volunteers, most of them still with me, and I was the only Catholic at first. I had Anglicans and Eastern Orthodox hanging with me.
That's funny.
But that's cool. No, I love the Eastern Orthodox. I actually love the High Church Anglicans who are serious about it and have not kept their snooty anti-Catholic attitudes, which some of them have.
Right.
And I think the world of the Oriental Orthodoxy, which includes, I believe, the Coptics that everybody's hearing about these days, at least I was,
right,
and the Assyrian Orthodox, I believe all four of those have, you know, completely legitimate claim to being the oldest operating, least changed, most true to the faithful church, to the early church, in my view. All four of them do.
But they're very different. So how do you tell?
Oh, see, they're not that different. That was the thing that got me. That was the thing that got me. The similarities were too great, and the things they had argued over were too small. Because the things that these four, and to extent five, I mean, the Anglicans are weird. We'll have to talk about what's weird about them sometime.
Right.
I'm planning on doing a video on it. Not, yeah, they're kind of half Protestant, half not. They're just interesting. But they're mostly pretty Orthodox. And there's a few others you could say this about too. The defining traits that I immediately keyed on were the traits that Protestants and others had always told me were Catholic lies. Because one of the things I noticed, especially among the Bible Christians, was they always, when they couldn't resolve their theological disagreements, they would always agree about how much the Catholic Church sucked. It's like a touchstone among Bible Christians, and I'm sure JWs and Mormons too. And I've heard all that. And I kept finding that they were not telling the truth, because it's not just the Eastern Orthodox. Although I love the Eastern Orthodox, the Assyrian Orthodox and the Oriental Orthodox really, to me, told the tale. Because the Assyrian Orthodox and the Oriental Orthodox split off in the Assyrians split off, I believe, in the early 400s, and the Oriental Orthodox split in the late 400s. So you're talking about, 5th century there.
Right.
And we can show they were in continuous operation, before that, obviously. And so with the Assyrians especially, you've got 1,600 years of separation, not just 1,000 like with the Easterners. And but what do the Assyrians have? What do the Assyrians and the Oriental Orthodox have? They have something they call the Eucharist, and that they believe is literally the flesh and blood of Christ. The body of Christ when you're there. They have sacraments that all came down from Pentecost, and the immediate generation after it. So they go to confession. They have priests they call Father.
It's all very similar.
They have something called liturgy, which is all those formalized rituals, prayers that supposedly are so cultish. They all use formal ritualized prayer. They all use go to something they call the Mass. Which is liturgy, which is, if you go see a Catholic service, it's actually all plotted out. The priest has to do everything a certain way, from how he's dressed, where he goes.
Sure. Very specific rules.
And from every Mass, from week to week, it changes. And that's all liturgical, because the Mass is considered a prayer, a group prayer, and it has to be done right. But they all have that. So, we all recognize, you do your Mass that way, but you do their Mass that way. Although if you study it, you find the same elements are in all of them. It's just various people over the centuries. Like, the current Catholic Mass is, I'm just going to be honest, as a Catholic, is a disaster. I don't want to talk about the Catholic Mass right now.
Okay, I've never been. I'd like to go to one of these days.
You might want to check it out. But basically, they really liberalized church practice in the 1960s. And now you walk into a Catholic church, you don't know what you're going to get. Prior to that, and this is also still true of the Eastern Orthodox and the other Orthodoxy, for the most part, you walk into any church, you're going to get the same thing globally that day.
Right, right. So it's more unified.
Way more unified, way more uniform. You know, we get something called a missal, MISSAL, which will actually lay out for the coming year or two what each Sunday is going to be, what the readings are going to be, what the, you know, what the season is, what the important saints are, and that's all going to be part of the Mass service. So you can just go look and know what we're doing next Sunday.
That's really interesting. So, which one was this? Which group is this? Eastern Orthodox?
Well, I'm pretty sure all the Orthodoxy have some variant of it, but I know that the Eastern Orthodox,
I didn't know they were that unified. That's pretty interesting.
The missal. Well, yeah. Okay. So here's a daily Roman missal, but and you can of course get them for because you know the Anglicans use a missal. It's going to be the same kind of thing. So let's say we go to the daily Roman missal here. Yeah, it'll have, because these are all, there's a standard liturgical year, right? So I mean, people knock us because we have all these saints and all these holy days and stuff.
Right.
But what it does is it creates a rhythm through the season and throughout the year, where you're thinking about various parts of the Bible and various stories within it. And
so
we've actually been doing this for, we've been doing this way for a couple thousand years, just about. I mean, missals go back a long time. So I'm sorry, what?
I'm sorry, say again?
Yeah, missals go, I'm just saying they go back a really long time. We've been doing this way for many, 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 many centuries.
Yeah.
And they're plotted out because it's like, just like the Mass is very structured, it's a specific form of prayer with different meanings to everything everybody does, everything the priest does, everything the altar servers do. If you start studying it, you can get lost studying what goes on in the Mass because everything is specific and it's all very prayer driven. And it's considered a big group prayer.
I had no idea. That's really interesting.
And the you know, we know what we're going to be praying. I mean, not that everybody does, right? I mean, most of us just show up at Mass. Oh, it's this Sunday. Okay. But I mean, if you're into it, I can tell you what we'll be doing, you know, on January 15th in 2020.
Right. So, like, what do they plan out exactly that far ahead? Is it like the sermon that they're going to be giving and things like that, Bible verses and stuff? Or?
Let me give you. Let me see if I can just Google one up for you. See if we got one. Roman Missal. Okay, U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. Let's see if they've got one online. Because, like, what year? What week is this? Okay, I can't seem to find it, but. Okay, I'm trying to pull this up because, all right, wait a minute, Catholic calendar. I should just go get my missal book, but, okay, so this is the month of the Sacred Heart. You can go in on any given day and see on June, this will go to what, June 20, okay, so this is recent, June 30th. You can find out what the daily okay. The Mass is structured, and this is true of all the Orthodox branches, okay? The Mass is going to be usually structured into something called the Liturgy of the Word and the Liturgy of the Eucharist. During the Liturgy of the Word, there will be prayers and singing and usually a homily by the preacher, and so the daily
And what is a homily again? Forgive me, I've never been to this before. So.
Yeah, okay. Well, oh, you can go to any of these, by the way, and if you just show up and say, I want to observe, people will just say, oh, go sit over here. Don't worry. You don't have to feel strange about it. But anyway, you'll have readings, which will say, okay, on Saturday, June 30th, we'll be doing readings from Lamentations, Psalms, and Matthew. Okay. So, if you're real into it and being the super Catholic, you're like spending the week getting ready. Most of us don't, but you know what I mean, right? Oh, this is what we're gonna do, right? Okay, then we're gonna go into church. We're gonna hear readings during the service of each of these. We're gonna first reading, you know, and a reader will come up. Second reading, there'll usually be a responsorial psalm. So it's a reading, then it's a psalm. So we read from one of the psalms, and it's back and forth with the congregation, and then there's a reading from the Old Testament, there's a responsorial psalm where the whole group does a psalm together, and then a reading from the gospel. And now the homily is when the priest turns into a preacher and gives a sermon. That's his homily. And
Okay, I see.
he has no hard and fast rule too much, but he's expected that his homily is somehow going to relate to what we just read, or it would be kind of a dumb homily, right?
Right. Okay.
So, but I mean, and then otherwise he's going to say whatever he thinks he needs to say to his congregation. He's a preacher at that point.
Right.
When he's done with his preaching, we go into the liturgy of the Eucharist, where we celebrate the presence of Christ, and we take communion, and then there's more songs and prayers, and then we go home. And then there's, you know, where we torture the witches, but we're not supposed to talk to you about that.
Right. I'm with you. Okay, so let me ask you this then, on that note. By the way, I have about 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah, this is going longer than it normally does, but you're asking questions.
So I was going to ask you, like, do you guys have any kind of, like, rituals or anything? Like, do you repeat any prayers? Or
dude, I pray the rosary every single day. And
okay, so, like, what is involved in that?
The rosary? Okay, the daily prayers? Okay. The most important thing I think people got to get in their heads is repetitive prayer is a form of meditation.
Sure.
Or it's like listening to a song over and over again.
Yeah.
And the standard prayers, there are some Christians, mostly what I'd call Bible Christians, sola scriptura Christians, that just say you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't have rote prayers. You just pray whatever you're going to pray, and that's all. And they can have that opinion if they want. Rote prayers go back a really long time, and the best prayers are the formulated ones, especially the ones that have endured in time, because their message is timeless and often very deep. So, you know, reading from, I mean, the difference, like, read one of the Psalms that's really deep, and you can read that thing 500 times and not see the depth in it.
Right.
Find new depths in it you didn't even know were there, kind of thing. And so the repetitive prayers, I mean, the Rosary, I say the Our Father at least 20 times a day. I say the Hail Mary probably about 200 times a day.
That is a lot.
Well, I'm a heavy rosary prayer. Most people who pray the rosary, it's only going to be like 50. But I pray I pray 4 rosaries a day most days. That's my choice, and that's the difference, by the way, when you hear about cults that force rote prayer or something. It's like, no, we don't force rote prayer. Not every Catholic prays a rosary. It's highly encouraged and beneficial, and I get a lot out of it, so I'm glad I do it. I mean, it's even improved my health.
So what kind of things do you get out of it? Like what kind of benefits do you feel in your everyday life from it, do you think?
Well, there's something called the Promises of the Rosary, which you can Google up if you want. I happen to believe in those, and I've seen some of them in action. So you can go Google up Promises of the Rosary. But if you're not religious, or you don't believe that crap, or think I'm just delusional, because some of it involves graces and stuff like that, what I can tell you, even from a modernist perspective, it's an intensely useful form of meditation. It really does shut the entire world out when you need it shut out. The lessons in the Rosary, we not only say the repetitive prayers, but we meditate on certain Bible passages and key things that happened in the Bible, which all turn out to be remarkably easy to relate to everyday life. And so, like, you know, when I'm depressed, I'll often pray what are called the sorrowful mysteries. It really all just...
And that kind of pulls you out of it for the most part?
It can, or it gives me a more profound understanding of my own suffering and the value of feeling sorry for myself, which is limited. And yeah, it does. So one rosary takes the average person about 15 minutes. So if you think of it as 15 minutes of meditation while you're shutting the world away and just doing something repetitive, you know, I mean, I can tell you the physical benefits. It has reduced my stress levels. It helped me lose weight. I did absolutely nothing but start praying the rosary and say, I asked for help losing weight, but I did nothing else. And about 40 pounds came off of me in about 6-7 months.
I can definitely see the benefit. I mean, I can see how that kind of meditation thing would definitely get into you and could be beneficial. That's very, very interesting to me.
Yeah, yeah. I
I
mean,
have to do more research on
sleep
that.
better. There's actually research showing that prayer has, all the same benefits of meditation, and
Right.
arguably more. There's research
Mm.
showing that, and it's usually the repetitive kind that actually has that positive effect.
Mm.
And the good repetitive prayers. I mean, like people sitting there and think you're going to listen to a prayer and you're going to get indoctrinated with a message. Well, you're getting indoctrinated with the message no matter what you listen to, but if
Right.
it's got words. But if the prayer is well formed, like the Psalms are all prayers.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, the Psalms were Jewish hymns, weren't they?
yeah, we've lost the music to them, but they were meant to be sung and they were meant to be prayed. And actually, historically, Christians would do this too. The Rosary, I know you got to go soon, but I will mention, like, for the Rosary,
Sure.
is rooted in an ancient Jewish, and not just Jewish, because like a lot of other religions do this too. Is they're prayer beads, and what a practice of monks, of Jewish and Christian monks, for at least 1,000 years, if not more, was to get a group of beads, and they had 150 beads, and they would say one of the psalms. There's 150 psalms, so they would say
Right.
all 150 psalms with prayer beads, kind of to keep count and keep as a
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of the
feeling.
purpose of the rosary too, right? Is to kind of go to each bead, say the prayer again, and then go to the next one.
Exactly, and actually it becomes a physical rhythm thing, and a kind of
Right.
tangible part of the prayer and meditation you're doing, and a focus for your mind. You're feeling the
Mm.
beads, and if you really get into it, you'll find a lot of us rosary prayers, we just love playing with our rosary, just fiddling
Sure,
with
sure. Do
it.
you carry it with you, or do
I
you
always
leave it at
have one on me, sir. In fact, I usually have three on me.
What, really? Three, huh?
Well,
Just in case you lose two?
And it's funny. I found out that Louis Pasteur had the same habit, so now I do it
Really?
from memory. Oh yeah.
So are they different? Is that what it is? Are they
No,
different?
it's simply that I'm ADHD and clumsy and lose shit.
Okay, that makes sense.
I shouldn't swear, but
Ah,
I lose things all the time. Plus, I like to give them out because I propagate the rosary. I
okay,
encourage people.
that's cool. That
You
sounds
don't have
pretty interesting.
You do not have to be Catholic to pray one either. In fact, the
Right.
Orthodox do, and there's no requirement.
I don't know that I would. I probably wouldn't, because I don't know that there would really be a purpose in it for me. But I do appreciate the meditation aspect of it. I didn't really know how I felt about meditation in general. And then I heard Sam Harris talking about meditation, how he does meditation, all this. So I didn't take it just at his word, like meditation is real, but it at least gave me a chance to take another look at it and give it another thought,
I think there's no question the physical neurological benefits of it.
Right.
I believe in the spiritual benefits too. I think prayer is more powerful, but that's probably another conversation. We can come back for another one if you want. This is.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't mind coming back. Although I'm booked to solid at the moment, but we'll figure this out, and I'll come back on. We'll talk about it again.
Because I really want to talk about the cultish aspects of atheism. I
know,
really
yeah.
think more people need to think about it because that's kind of what got me out of it. But
Yeah, we will set that as the topic for the next one, and we'll really give it some thought. I'm very skeptical about that, but we'll take a look. We'll see if we can take an objective look at it. And
let's do it. We'll schedule something for that. We'll have a what are the cultish aspects of atheism? I contend there are a lot. He's skeptical. That sounds good. Sounds like good. Let's see, everybody. Let's go ahead and close this up. I'm just trying to find the link. There we go. Check out the channel, everybody, of Telltale Atheist. Give him a subscribe, like some of his videos, and I generally find his videos not too objectionable. I may do a response video to his Catholic video, but we'll see.
Yeah, I may do a response to it too. I don't know that I agree with everything in there at this point. I was telling you this before. I didn't want to take it down for posterity's sake, but eventually I'll do a response, so you can do a response too.
That sounds good. So go ahead and subscribe to his channel. Otherwise, please visit us on redpillreligion.com. Give us your financial and your spiritual support. Please give us a like. Please give us a subscribe. Tomorrow, Deflating Atheism will be here. We have John Wright on Wednesday, as usual. And my old MRA buddy, Jack Barnes, will be here on Thursday. So please give us a like, please give us a subscribe, please tell your friends or enemies about us, and God bless everybody.